Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of the Clifford podcast. As you can see, we are here in our hot tub today because it's a meta on Twitch, and RP is a big component of our podcast, as you may know.
It is
so
indeed.
is Stronghold.
Yep, we gotta get them viewers. We gotta get them all about that thug life.
Exactly. I mean, there's no shame here.
Get them money, get them bitches.
Exactly. I mean, there's already 4 women who have joined us in the hot tub, as you can see. And they seem to be having a swell time, which is why they're dancing. So this episode of the Potter and Cliff podcast, we are going to be talking about the Nature Progress Master Mode operation. We're going to have a full discussion and review of every boss, and the fact that there was no item rating for the tier. We're going to talk about the set bonuses. We're going to talk about how some bosses have unintended strats currently in the game, and how that has impacted the community's opinion of the operation. We're going to answer some questions from chat, and so Potter.
Yes, Mr. Clifford.
Let's start by talking about the fact that there was no new item rating with NiM Duxon. What are your thoughts about that? 306.
Well, apart from the fact that 306 gear doesn't come from the hardest operation in the tier, is kind of sus. But the fact that we didn't get anything extra, even horizontally. Actually, no, we'll speak about our horizontal progression later on. In terms of our vertical progression, it was kind of sad. But at the same time, it was okay. Because no one really wanted to do a ham station for another 50 million times anyway to get 308 gear. So
yeah, they sort of put themselves into a corner where the whole tier and the whole onslaught system was everyone gets their item rating from any activity, right? And when you do that, it makes it difficult when you release an operation to retroactively change it such that the best gear only comes from Master Mode. Because the expectation at this point from BioWare is even the casual players can get the best gear as far as item rating, as far as stats.
As far as we were speaking about this 2 weeks ago on our first episode of the podcast, the fact that there's scaled and unscaled content also is really annoying as well. Because you need to have 2 sets of gear, one for scaled content and one for unscaled. And as we know, Duxon is an unscaled operation, so you want to be using power and mastery as your relics, not attack and not crit and alacrity relic.
So it's kind of nice,
Yeah, no, it is kind of nice.
It's kind of nice to finally have to press that alacrity button,
I actually kind of got used to using the alacrity button all the time now, though. It's just
yeah,
it's worse when I play Duxon. I'm pressing the keyboard for my alacrity relic and it's not there.
That's like the gas button.
Yeah, exactly. It's the nitro boost you need.
It's the G Fuel button.
Exactly. So I actually kind of think that alacrity boost is actually more bis than, say, having mastery. I feel like more bis, because that's a term we use in English language. But no, yes. I feel like using alacrity, specifically for Apex, would be a good idea. But obviously you need to practice at it out and all that stuff. But it's anecdotal evidence, sure. I think having alacrity on that fight would be pretty pog.
Yeah, clicky routes could be good for meeting micro windows of DPS checks. Yeah, I can see that. There was actually some people consider that for Isaacs as well with the phases, but I don't think that was ever fully realized. But I could definitely see your point there. So let's talk about some of the Duxon set bonuses that came out in Nightmare exclusively. These were pretty underwhelming because you would think, there's no new item rating, but here come these new set bonuses. What do? Maybe they give something excellent. Maybe they give something that is going to help you clear the raid, more output check, more utility. But if you look at it, there's nothing really that damn good, and they're so hard to get. I mean, even players like me and you who've cleared the instance more than almost anybody, we still struggle to have every set bonus,
the way the loot table drops is you need to have the class to obviously get it. You need to have the classes there. So it's just things like that. And it's as you said, the set bonuses themselves aren't even that good. So it's The PT's got emergency power, but that was in hard mode, so it's like big whoop.
Yep. Arsenal got Apex Predator, but that's in hard mode.
That's also in hard mode. I guess you have the operative tactical, the operative one where you're
tactical overdrive.
No, tactical superiority, I think it's called.
Or tactical security, where you get the 20%
damage on your thing. I like that's kind of decent.
That's one of the more viable ones.
Yeah, that's kind of decent.
But like, let's just go through it real quick. So there's no mercenary DPS set in Nightmare Duxon. No. There's only healer one. There's no Sin DPS set bonus either. What else? Who else are missing sets? There's a lot of classes missing sets that were specifically designed for NiM Duxon. But hey, look at it this way. They all suck anyway, so you're not missing out on much, right?
Yeah.
But it's just ridiculous. Like, I'll tell you, Ballistic Concentration, which is not better than Established Foothold, but it would be fun to experiment with micro windows of DPS checks. There's no chance to even test it because it took me until February of this year to even get the full set. And like I said, I ran it all the time. Yeah. Because there was something wrong with the loot table for a while where it just kept dropping gloves, 9 sets of gloves, 7 sets of bracers. It's like I've never even seen what the chest piece looks like. Turns out it looks the same as everything else.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, the gear in the game doesn't actually look good.
Yeah, and it sort of goes back to that philosophy of the illusion of choice. It's like we have all these set bonuses in the game. It's a horizontal progression tier because everyone's 306.
Yeah.
But realistically, all of these sets are not tuned correctly that they would ever be viable. You know, like completely useless sets, like the controller set for the Whirlwind. You know what I'm talking about? Like completely useless stuff no one would ever use. So you have the illusion of choice, but no one would ever use that because they don't want to worry about there being an imbalance, so they never have to return and do any balancing to the set bonuses. That's why they leave those so bad.
What I would have liked to have seen is more variation in what's best in slot for each of the specs, right? So it's like for Arsenal, Mercury, you have now Apex Predator, and for IO, you use Concentrated Fire, right? So like you have a clear difference in the specs. I feel like if they used NiM Duxon as a way to make more sets like that, so it's like, say for Lightning Silks, you have Gathering Storm, and then for Manus, you have a new set. And like, you can do that with all of the sets. Something that's more geared and tailored towards the actual spec itself, I feel like would go a long way to making the classes feel more fun. And that way, like, it makes gearing more fun as well. Because it's like, as I said, everyone's done with gearing. You just do flashpoints for like 2 hours, get to 306, and then you just spam TC farm or whatever, like, world event boss that it is. Get all that tech fragments, buy your set bonus gear, and you're done. It's like, there's no fun to it. Like, you don't... Like, we spoke about this last week as well, like, operations not being a way to get the best gear. And it's like, yeah, I kind of understand, like, you want to give it out to everyone, but at the same time, it's like you want to make doing the operations fun and stuff.
Yeah, you need to give players something more valuable to work towards, and those set bonuses, frankly, just aren't worth going for. And the Echoes of Oblivion, I think it's called, Flashpoint coming out, is actually going to drop Nightmare Duxon set bonuses from the last boss. So for people who've been rolling Kaizyken, a good way to target set bonuses you need is to class stack in that new Flashpoint. It's going to be a good way going forward. But okay, back to NiM Duxon. I think we're going to start with Red now. We've talked about the gearing and item rating, no item rating, and the new set bonuses. We'll start with Red.
Red, the most tested boss in the history of the PTS.
Exactly. We got flowers under the ground, some are on top of caves, got some in the right place. We got invisible bulls. We got all sorts of stuff happening. But what do you think about Red? Does it accomplish the goal as a starting point at first boss in the operation? Does it meet the parameters of saying to people, are you tall enough to ride the ride of Duxon? Does it meet that goal?
I think it does. It's not the hardest first boss in any of the operations. I feel like Bestia would always be the hardest first boss boss fight.
But, yeah.
Well, Tithe as well. Yeah, Tithe and Bestia would probably be the hardest too. Tithe being first because it was like a bit more finicky. But in terms of as a introduction boss, it's like the fight is essentially a dash route fight again, just with ads, like more ads and like ads that like actually annoy you. So like, no, I kind of enjoy the fight. I like seeing how different groups all have different various strats of dealing with the ads. Are you CCing them? Are you killing them? And, like the different pathways.
Yeah.
Like, no, I kind of liked it. It was a bit sad that we didn't get this variation in strat in hard mode, when everyone just just brute force the
Right.
fight and not and just use 2 flowers. I remember my group when we first did hard mode. We did the entire thing. Like we were like we didn't know you could just use 2 flowers and brute force it. So we actually did the strat, and it was actually kind of fun. So no, I think like Red's a really good boss.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really good first boss. I think it's one of the better first bosses they've released, and it's got a fair amount of mechanics. Probably, like you said, on pace with like Bessie mechanically wise. And yeah, I don't think it's like too easy either. I think it's a pretty good representation of preparing the groups. Hey, this is what to be expecting in this operation. It's a bit tougher. It's you got to have DPS who are doing DPS. You have to have people aware of what's going on with the ads. You can't just be paying attention to your own character. You got to
it gives each person in the raid something to do, or something to be aware of, which is obviously what you want to fight, because you don't want to fight where half the raid's falling asleep.
Yeah, you don't want to. We've been there, we've done that.
Yeah, like that's not fun. Like you want, like for red, like if the DPS aren't aware of where the tanks are dropping pool or doing jet and stuff, like they could get caught out and die, and then, oh damn, it's a wipe. And like I like the venom mechanic as well. Like, so it makes. I feel like the fight is a very well designed fight, which is obviously because it's the most tested. So of course, like if they failed red, no hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and something I like about red is you're moving a lot, and it's foreshadowing for the 2 breach encounters to come, which obviously you're moving the entire time. So let's talk about the breach encounters first. I guess my first question would be, what is your overall impression of them adding these encounters that are different than boss fights? You know, these encounters are like a brand new thing to Nightmare raiding. What do you think about them?
Like, I don't mind the encounters. Obviously, it's different from like the traditional trash pulls, because you can wipe and they count as the bosses and all that stuff. But like, I don't mind them. I wish they set the NiM version of the fight better in hard mode. I feel like if the droids were introduced in hard mode, it would make it a better line of progression between story to hard to nightmare. Otherwise, like there's only so much you could do with that, with encounters 1 and 2. Like
but you see people move at their own pace, which I think is cool. There's pretty good variation in strat. Do you let your tanks pick up the stints? Do you let your DPS pick them up so you can TTK that Predator droid faster? Where are we going to flare, and at what points are we running, and what points we're staying still? You know, something I like about those encounters is it's a good opportunity to pull out Fleet Tacticals for a lot of classes.
Yeah.
It's also a good opportunity to use utilities you might have not seen, like Stealth Scan Speed Boost. When the hell's the last time you saw that used in the raid? Probably never. You know, this is the first time you saw it used. You probably saw it used in hard mode as well. But it's good to see different utilities of every class being used for once, and I think that's what the breach encounters do. It would have been awesome if both breaches were 1, because you might remember the breach 1 and breach 2 encounters were originally designed to be 1 complete fight where you're in combat, where you got to keep going. But you know, limitations of the game, or developer time.
It seems we have an imposter in our area.
Oh yeah, do we?
If you're gonna dance on Cliff, you better like dance properly, please. Like, what is this dance?
What's
like, give us a good show, please, Yad.
You have to. You need to donate and get on the chalkboard.
Exactly. Like, give us a better dance. Like, adjust your attire.
What's going on here?
Fuck.
Yeah, like, come on. No incels in the pool.
Yeah,
okay?
come on.
You're gonna have to pay big bucks to get your name on my forehead. Okay. Anyways, back to what we were saying. So now we're talking about Breach 2. You know, the Delicious Bull, the Reapers, the Crabs. You know, what are your thoughts on this encounter?
Well, I honestly don't mind it that much. Obviously we have some friends in our hot tub now, which is great. But no, I think the crabs. The crabs are kind of stupid because like you don't deal with them. They're just there to be annoying. And like a lot of the like most teams don't even do the fight properly. Like I know my team, we used to like kill Delicious and the Reapers at the start, and then we'll go on. But now it's like everyone just skips everything. Like you have to wipe the first time you do that boss. Otherwise, it's like there's some bug in the game, which is stupid. Thanks, BioWare.
That is.
Yeah. And then you just like speed through everything, and like and at the end, like the very end where you're like killing the wardens, it's like there's good variation in how groups deal with that. Like, do you have both wardens outside with the Reapers, or do you flare and like slowly chunk them down? And like that's kind of fun. But otherwise, it's just like there.
Each pull's a little different because you don't know what ads you're gonna get. Are you gonna get the stalkers? Or are you gonna get are you gonna get the big horses? You never know, and you gotta decide: are we staying? Are we going? Are we staying? Are we going? I'm pretty pleased with the encounter, and I think the first encounter is a bit more fully realized and better, and I think both would work together better together. But having the encounter separate gives you time to class stack specifically for both, or change your tactical or stuff like that. So I think that in a way makes the encounters a little bit easier than intended. But I think they're good. And as far as if they should, my overall opinion on like these encounters where you're running a lot, I like the idea of it, but I wouldn't mind if it never returned, just because it seems like, a lot of players see them as maybe a little bit tedious and
I feel like if there's like an actual boss, if there's an actual boss in each of the encounters, I feel like that would be better. But but what it is now of like essentially just running, like it's essentially just an extended trash pool. Like I understand it; it's not the best. Like obviously, I don't want to see it again. But like they could improve upon it if they like put a boss there and made the fight interesting. Or like right now, I think for like encounter 1, like there's the only enrage limit to it is just that more gold ads start spawning and stuff, and you get overwhelmed. Well, I feel like you could account for that by just running like a really strong cleave comp. So I guess it all depends.
Right, definitely.
Like I feel like if they made people like for like a venom timer and like you have to get there in a particular time, I feel like that'd be more fun.
Sure. Yeah. So encounter's pretty good. I think red might have been better received overall. But now we're gonna go on to the next boss, which is Trandoshans, the mutant Trandoshans. Potter, what are your thoughts on the mutant Trandoshans?
I really like the changes they did from hard mode. Obviously now, Strike Council, all 4 Trandos drop at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
No, I really like it. Everyone does something. Like everyone has a mechanic they have to. Like I think there's only 1 role or 2, depending on your strat. Like if you're going to get a single PT to do Titax or not. But otherwise, it's only 1 DPS who's doing nothing in terms of mechanics.
But they get to have a lot of fun traveling around, given a big parse. So.
But yeah, otherwise, I feel like it did. Trandos did what it was meant to do and made a hard mode version of the fight, which was fun in itself, and made it better and made it more interesting, which is great. The only issue with Mutant Trandos is the Ultimate Hunter at the end. I feel like while groups
super buggy.
It's super buggy, and it's like it's also not very clear on how, like, what the best way to kill that fight is. Like, I know everyone does the Ram strat now, or the LOS strat from before. But
go ahead. Sorry.
But I was gonna say it's also like it feels like that particular Ultimate Hunter at the end is very anti-melee. Like you could, if you had like 4 ranged, you'd be great, right? But, like you can't run 4 ranged for like the previous part of the fight. So it's like I'm not exactly sure what they were trying to accomplish with Ultimate Hunter, because right now, like it just maybe it's because it's too buggy or something. But like I feel like being a melee on that fight, which I've done like a couple of times, is like not the best.
Yeah, I would say the biggest problem on Ultimate Hunter, first of all, like the range, or I mean, excuse me, the melee don't really have like an important thing to do for that, and it's very much you can turtle on that. So there's not really a dire reason to kill the boss fast besides stalling for tank cooldowns. And it does bug out a lot with his fucking thunder blast that he does, where it can go infinite. But it does just feel like one of those weird fights that is just like a turtle fest, and it doesn't feel the most fun or most rewarding. I mean, there's many kills where groups will have like half the group dead, and I've had many kills like that too. And it just feels weird, and it doesn't feel rewarding. And yeah, I would say Ultima Hunter is a disappointing part of the fight. But as far as, like you said, the Immune Trandoshans itself, everyone has a role. Healers have to be on top of their game, paying attention to many different things at once. I think Hissy Fist is a very rewarding thing to tank properly, and same with Chronicius. And as far as DPS, I think Grius is the most fun to roll to do, because when you do Grius correctly and you tank him correctly, and you're able to dodge his flamethrowers and place him next to Hissy Fist and Chronicius to get a little bit of fire damage on them, like those feel very rewarding to do. And I think there's a lot of good classes that can, deal with Grease in a very good way. I think Madness is probably the best. And players who are good at doing Grease can also multi-dot other bosses. And yeah, I would say it's overall just a very good fight. And probably it's just as good as Red. Probably a little bit better than the Breach encounters. And overall, it is a very good fight.
Yeah. I feel like...
Yeah.
I would rather them take Ultimate Hunter out and just make all the other bosses a bit harder than having Ultimate Hunter in that fight. But otherwise, yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a good fight.
Yeah. Okay, so now, before we go to Huntmaster, let me ask real quick. What are your thoughts on the staircase?
The staircase that no one actually goes, the half of the map that got deleted in Nightmare because of reasons. Look, I don't mind the staircase. Like it was like straight novelty. The mines on the staircase, that is something I do mind. Haha. But
nice pun, Potter.
Thanks. But I don't I get what they were trying to do, like just by like adding some more trash into the raid and stuff, but when like they give you an achievement, I think the Codebreaker title, so you can skip that anyway. So it's like, why introduce something that you can very easily skip? And
but the skip is kind of dumb because you instantly run into mobs and mines as soon as you skip.
Yeah. Well, that's that part of the skip, but like the way that my team does it now when we do Duxon is that we get our our tank to go grab the second, I think the second trash, the trash that's just outside of the, not, you know where the elevator is, like on the ramps, right? He grabs that trash. You kill that. Both elevators are open. Voila, done. So it's like, it's it's a like right now. I just wish they would just patch it and remove it completely, because there's no point to it, really. Like there is no point.
Yeah,
like
I guess my big problem. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's all.
Okay, I was gonna say real quick. I guess a problem I have is the mines in Duxon don't make sense to me. They add them in there to be an annoyance. There's no actual reason story wise, like why there are mines in this facility. They exist only to be annoying, and I think there's no reason for it. And I really hope that they do not return mines to the next raid. It's like a running joke to like make the players suffer by dealing with those. That is my biggest problem. I think with the op, even more than the stairs, is the mines. I would really hope to see that they don't return in the future. They exist only to be annoying. So, yeah. But yeah, the staircase, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I think the Trando's trash is worse beforehand. But once your group understands how to do the staircase, you can do it pretty fast. Okay, so now Huntmaster.
Everyone's favorite boss, the Huntmaster.
Potter. Yeah. Potter, what are your thoughts on the Huntmaster?
To be honest, I could probably do without it. I understand what they were trying to do for the fight, but at the same time, I feel like BioWare needs to understand the limits of their game engine at this point in time. Because, there's a lot of things wrong with this fight. Like, egg snipes aren't like. I would prefer them to be telegraphed, like with an actual like beam that you could see, than whatever it is now. Because like, is it 180 conal? Is it like a 90-degree conal? Like, no one fucking knows the radius of that kernel. It is stupid.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of misunderstanding. It's like first it looks for proximity, closest player within like a certain cone. Like it might be like 120 degrees. But I think a lot of one thing people don't know about egg snipe is there's actually a target marker, just like a character does a snipe.
It's an X on the
egg.
Yeah.
So you can see. You just really have to scroll out.
It's the same X that you get at the end of Isaac's. After phase 5. But
so egg snipe used to actually be an even faster cast. It used to be a half second each, but I don't think it's actually that bad of a mechanic. I think the idea's in the right place, but like you said, the limitations of the engine are one of the reasons I think people struggle to enjoy Huntmaster. But overall, I think it is a very good mechanical fight, and I would say overall I enjoy the fight. And we want to talk about it real quick because this is really where the problems of Duxon come through is Huntmaster and Apex, and this is what we're going to do the second half of the podcast talking about is Huntmaster has strats that sort of seem to be unintended or a little bit cheesy. They are valid ways to kill. Obviously, they're not like exploits or anything, but the way that the boss was nerfed when it came to live was you can knock lots of ads in. You can snipe the boss if you have a 35-meter class, and there were bandages put on these without putting like a brute force fix in. For example, with Reflect, the reason the Reflect exists is because Camera 2 said, hey, it's not intended for you to do damage during holdout phase. And this Reflect is enough to deter that. But in reality, it is not. Every group can do it, and everyone can deal with the healing output to keep your DPS alive, and you can get more damage done in that way. So that's like an example where they don't really fix the problem, and as a result, the fight, your entire strat can change based off the fact that you could just stack 35-meter and hit the boss.
Yeah, I feel like they had a very set, clear intention on how to make the fight different from hard mode. Because in hard mode, you do want just 35-meter strat, 35-meter classes and attack the boss. But for Nightmare, there's a very clear understanding that that's not what they want out of this fight, because there is a reflect and all that. But I also think going back to like PTS and stuff, there was an issue on the PTS where people were just skipping Huntmaster and going straight to Shelly, and then they tuned the fight based on Shelly at the end, which is why the birds do so much to Shelly and stuff.
Correct.
Which, like, Shelly as it is now is like really annoying to deal with, and like that part of the fight isn't even tuned correctly. So like I feel like
if you do the fight the way that they intended, where you kill ads, Shelly will spawn basically dead now. Whereas before there was still a fight to be done with Shelly at the end.
Yeah, so like Shelly is not even a thing in the fight.
Yeah, with the way that a lot of groups do it, the Shelly burn used to be like basically impossible or extremely difficult on PTS, but they made it so that you can just do it now because people complain about Shelly being too hard. But go ahead.
I want to say, speaking of the two strats, because my group did the original strat of like killing ads, preventing ads going into Huntmaster because of his stacks, and then we swapped to what is referred to as the German 5-head strat, which is essentially the hard mode strat. Like when we swapped strats like that, and it's like I was playing range DPS for that fight, and it's like, yeah, okay, it's a bit fun. Well, it's not really fun. I actually enjoyed the knockback the original strat that we did of killing the ads much more, because like you weren't stacking lightning swords or snipers or whatever.
So I have, by killing the ads, what you do is, first of all, you add more variety in what you're running, right? You could actually run AoE tacticals that are viable now, and it's a harder DPS check, so you're not going to have as much uptime on the boss. You're going to have tacticals that maybe do not have as much single target. For example, Slow Mercy or Slam Tactical sees a minor dip in DPS. And that makes the fight more difficult. But all these go away by simply changing it, making Shelly easier at the end, and making the strat read knock-in ads more viable. Yeah. So, yeah. But overall, I would say Huntmaster, an extremely mechanical heavy fight, and everyone has a role to do. Everyone has to deal with grenades, egg snipes. You need to be aware of your character's position. You need to be aware of ads on you, how you're going to stun or deal with them. And I would say overall, Huntmaster is a really good fight. And there are a handful of different ways where you can play around with exactly how your group does it. And that's one of the best things about it. So, yeah. But Huntmaster is, like we said, the beginning of
the
unintended strats, or the developers not really brute force fixing these unintended strats that obviously curtail the amount of progression needed in an unintended way. So now we're going to get to Apex. Potter, what are your thoughts about Apex?
Well, Apex, it is, I would say, the most boring fight in this game. Like,
really?
Apart from tanks, like I would say the tanks have things to do, but as a DPS, like even doing the ads, I would say Apex is the boringest fight I've ever done. And like that is comparing it to Styrak. And like Styrak is a pretty boring boss, but Apex is also very, very boring because whatever we praised about the other parts of this fight, about in terms of like DPS having something to do, healers having something to do, that essentially goes out the door in Apex because this fight is won by your tanks because they're the ones who are running your battery, they're the ones doing all that. And like, yeah, okay, you have to kill the ads and pop a spot, and healers need to do flares. But at the end of the day, this fight is won and carried by your tanks, and progression is dictated by your tanks as well. And it's just like, and like, whether you go full room or half room, I'm not going to talk about kite strat because
we're going to talk about.
We'll talk about it a bit later, but just about the way that the fight was intended, or the way that they designed the fight to be done. I like it is kind of boring. It's like the rocket mechanics. Okay, you need to stay spread for that. Contagions, like, yeah, okay, wow, you have a cleanse. It makes having a non-cleansable class in that fight, like a PT, a bit more annoying, but you just bring in a operative and it like that solves itself out. But I would say that having a forced cleanse like that does make it annoying in terms of class balance, because you can't, like, you're either choosing between running a Sin with Fin of the Force, which isn't like the best. I don't think it's the best on the tank.
I don't think it's a big deal. Yeah. I don't think it's a big deal.
But then you'd have, otherwise you're picking a PT or a sniper. And I think in most cases you're taking a PT over a sniper.
Yeah, well, I guess my opinion is on Apex. I see your point. Just first off, you need your tanks to be leaders, and they are the primary important thing. They have the most mechanics, and they are the most important part of your raid team for sure in Duxton because of Apex alone. This is where you're going to see are your tanks legit or not, is Apex. Yeah. I mean, if you have Parkland and buff tank in, your group is going to fail.
We're still waiting to see it. We're still waiting to see that. I know everyone wants to see it. Just bring it out there, Dongo, if you're watching.
If Dongo's watching what?
If Dongo's watching, you need to make it happen. Like, fucking bribe them. Do something. Everyone wants to see this.
Yeah, Parkland talks a lot. He was even talking about Buff Cultal Shot in chat earlier. Parkland, you better get your tank gear ready, buddy, because we're still waiting on that. But yeah, anyways, the tanks obviously have a lot to do in that fight. But the range GPS has a very important role, and your positioning matters, and you're kind of out of range of getting a lot of the AoE heals, and you have to be cautious of missiles and blue circles. But I know what you're saying as far as the melee DPS have less to do on the fight and are doing much more of like a dummy parse that just have to be aware of their positioning. And consistency is definitely the main thing. When you're a melee DPS, uptime is important, but most importantly, consistency and turtling seems to be like the way to go on a fight like Apex. Just the consistency is more important than the output overall in the fight. Yeah. But as far as it being a boring fight, I would argue a fight like Isaac's could be deemed as more boring because while it does have different phases, there's a lot of downtime. Whereas a fight on like Apex, you really have to have your brain on the whole time. You have to really be focused because at a moment's notice, things can go wrong.
Yeah.
You might have to help with something. You might have to pull a battery or do a quick mechanic if someone dies, if things fall apart. Because that I think that's one of the things. It can be exhausting, Apex, because you have to have your brain on the whole time.
Yeah, it's a different type of fight. Like it is like 13 or 15 minutes of straight fight. It never changes. You have to, like, you always have to be aware. And like for me, like when I meant by like boring, like that, like in terms of like a fight like being exhausting and stuff, Apex is definitely the most exhausting fight because you always have to be like, you have to be on the ball for that fight. Like if you fuck up, like you spread contagion, you stack full of rockets and all that, like that could lead to a wipe and stuff. But
yep,
that doesn't make it not boring though. Like you're just standing there most of the time and you're just dummy passing. Like for Isaac's, like what you said, yeah, there's breaks, but in each, like there's clear phases in Isaac's, like, and like having that break allows you to have like a little reset, like drop your focus just for a second, so you can go into the next phase and smash it out. I feel like with Apex, which is a similar thing with Styrac as well, but Styrac has a bit more phases to it, so it's like you're doing different things. It's just that because it's so repetitious, and because most of the prog is on the tanks, like it's not really on the DPS, it's not really on the healers. It makes doing that fight a lot more trying. It makes it more annoying because like if your tanks get hard stuck at a point, right? And this is pure, like this is, it's like with pure prog with anything, but like especially with Apex, if your tank gets hard stuck with a particular thing, right? I don't think like you can, like your DPS, just like their job from then on is just to be as consistent as possible to get back to that point so they can work for the problem. Because like you don't really, like, not every player is like they know everything about the fight. Like they're not every DPS is paying attention to that. So it's like from that standpoint, that's why I find the boss fight a bit boring. Because like,
well, that's why you find classes. That's why you find classes like Madness very useful in that fight. Classes that are strong, defensive, self-sustaining, can heal on their own, and have effective heals per second, just like Annie, on the right group and themselves is very important. I do like how Apex is a culmination of a lot of the mechanics you've seen before, with like Red Venom from Red and the stems and the flares. I think that's all well designed. But one thing we should talk about now is Red Venom and how Red Venom was bugged and it could be used to remove the mechanic entirely after the first time clicking the console, and how this, was changed multiple times but truthfully never fixed, and it could still be done. And I want to know your thoughts about Red Venom being exploited.
Like my group had to wrestle with this decision when we were doing proc. Is like, do we bug Red Venom or don't we? Because it was at the time where it was just after the operation got released, and like they were saying, are they fixing? Are they not fixing? We ultimately made the decision not to bug it, and like honestly, I feel like I viewed the Red Venom bug when it was a thing. I think it still is a thing, but like when it actually was a thing.
Yeah, it's harder to do.
Yeah, I view it the same way as the kite strat now. That it removes. Obviously, you want to play everyone's looking at the fight to do it the most efficiently, the most optimally. And obviously, bugging it or bugging Red Venom is a very optimal way to do it because you're essentially removing a mechanic from the fight. I do think it's a bug. For all the teams that did kill it by using Red Venom bug, I don't think it's an exploit, because at the time it was so easily bugged that I don't like. eventually became
Groups
intentional.
would accidentally do it.
Yeah, but at the time it was like kind of accidental that you bugged it. But then obviously through testing, people like started intentionally doing it and all that. But otherwise, it's
so okay. I'll give you my thoughts on this, Potter. So first of all, it is an exploit to do it, but there's a lot of times where you can do it by accident because it's so easy to do early on. A lot of groups decide to do it. The developers during the first lockout of the tier actually stated that this is not intended and it needs to be fixed, which is actually a lot of feedback that they're giving, especially in the first week of lockout for NiM Duxon, which was welcome to see. But I think what's disappointing is it never was truly fixed, and they kept changing the timing on it, and it's disappointing that it's still in the game. And it's just too bad that raids release like this. Like, I would say that's the biggest problem with Duxon is not the fact that these fights are good or bad or they're boring like you think they're boring. I think the biggest problem is there are bugs that still exist and it can still be abused. And I would say overall that is the biggest problem with Duxon as a whole. So that is something that's disappointing. Where Red Venom completely removes the mechanic that's intended. Something similar like kiting is a cheese. It's definitely not an exploit at all. You're just cheesing it in a way that's unintended. And this is just, frankly, an oversight by the entire macro way the fight works. Is just outrunning the boss. I think this is something they didn't even think about, and I think we should go to kiting next.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were you going to say?
I think also, like, what kite strat does, I feel like, for my point of view here, is that it makes doing Apex more accessible with groups you haven't progged the fight with, because it means that the only mechanics that you have to worry about are the tank ones with the battery. Otherwise, all the DPS and all the healers, they don't really have to think about it. So you can bring a group that don't raid with each other and do kite strat, and it will pretty much work. Which is great, but
that's the one silver lining.
Yeah, that's the silver lining. But I feel like that's
Apex is a pretty puggable Apex raid.
Yeah.
Final boss. Apex Vanguard with flares is very difficult to pug. Do you do half room or full room? At what time are you using defensive cooldowns? At what point are we tank swapping? Especially from a tank.
When do the healers go to get flares and stuff? Yeah.
How do you do ads? When are you getting stems? What side of the boss do I stand on melee? A lot of these questions can be answered pretty easily, but a lot of them, there's a lot of moving parts together where there is a lot of variety in how the fight is done. So before kite strat existed, even with Red Venom being the way it was, I think it's a pretty great fight. But now with the kiting, what this does is it reduces the amount of prog time necessary for a team to get later into the fight. It might make players be more sloppy. It might make the boss feel less rewarding to kill. But ultimately, a lot of players are there just to get the reward, to get the achievement. It's not about the accomplishment of doing the fight the correct way. And it is strange now because we're at a point now, we're on the night before 6.3, and they're about to supposedly fix kite strat. He's going to apply slow. The stacks are going to change. What are your opinions about this way to fix kite strat? Do you think it's going to work? What are your predictions? That, and what would you do if you had any other way to fix kite strat?
From what I've heard from people in various discords, I feel like people are already figuring out ways to bring the kite strat back. So it's not like kite strat's going anywhere. People are already actively looking for ways to exploit the new mechanics that they're bringing. Well, not exploit, cheese it. I think the best way to fix this issue, if they don't want kite strat to be a thing, is to make, when the boss reaches 20 stacks, you get if the main tank or whoever has threat is 30 meters away, you get the jump at the end of last hit or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll just give you my opinions just off the top of my head. So it was data mined. I don't know the full extent of it, but I believe there's going to be a slow. I'm assuming the slow is going to go through hydraulics, predation, anything that cleanses slows normally, even stems. I'm assuming this slow will be something that basically it makes a doomsday clock start. If you are at 20 stacks and you get this mechanic, you have to be close to killing because it's not sustainable. It's not something you could perpetuate for minutes on end. You can't do this at 60%, 40%. I think, in my opinion, two things I would do to change Kite's strat. Number one, when he increases Darkness Overdrive stacks, I would completely remove a DPS gain at all. I think you should not do additional DPS to Apex Vanguard when he gains more Overdrive stacks. This would make the Enrage check tighter because you lose uptime doing Kite strat. And you would see groups return to doing the normal Flare strat because they're not getting that DPS increase. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing, and I don't know exactly how this would work, but your group, a lot of groups do this. When Deluge happens and Ultraviolence, that's when groups start to, quote, kite back during the normal way of doing the fight, right? I think maybe when Apex reaches 20 stacks, if he does, there's some sort of like doomsday enrage where the group insta-wipes, let's say, after 4 minutes. So it's like once he reaches 20 stacks, maybe within a certain time window, the fight just ends and you wipe and it's over, right? He does an explosion like at the end of the Blinding Spray cast. Something to that effect would be, I think, another way to discourage Kite strat. You want to be able to do it until the end of the fight when it's sort of intended for you to stop producing flares, to stop charging the battery, and just kill the boss during last ditch and the final 25-30% of the fight.
Yeah.
Those are my changes. And I will say it is a little discouraging. I mean, it's fine for players to do it, right? But it's like, how are we going to kite with these changes coming? You know?
Yeah.
It's just funny that that's the first mentality it goes towards. Well, it's not, okay, let's do the fight properly. It's like, how can we do the kite now?
Just going off what you just said about, like, when it reaches 20 stacks, you get 4 minutes and, like, to kill the boss and stuff. Like, I was thinking, like, of a really great, like, flow on to that, to, like, just make the fight more enjoyable or something, right? So, like, right now, how you gain stacks is, like, if the boss isn't in the flare, the light's not on, right? And, every, I think, Bloodlust and Ultraviolence cast, it gets, like, 1 or 3 stacks or something, right? How about you make it like this? So, like, right now, if you blow up a battery, you remove, like, what, 5 stacks from the boss? How about this? You remove blowing up the battery from, like, you remove blowing up the battery to, like, get the stacks off, right? You make it a fight where it's a straight up DPS check and a healing check and all that. That you have to get the boss low enough so when he does reach 20 stacks, you only have a 4-minute window to kill him. Yeah, so it puts more urgency on the fight. It makes it more dynamic. And that way, like, you don't, and that doesn't mean you start kiting the boss at 20 stacks, but, like, I feel like it would just make the fight more enjoyable.
Yeah. So I sort of disagree with this. So, Potter, we got to look at this more practically, right? Anything that the devs put in game might be broken like the first time they put it in. So when you're asking the devs to do all these big changes, let's change the fight now that it's been out for 10 months.
Yeah, just change
all
the fight.
All these radical changes. I mean, they at this point, like, why do that? They need to do a few quick and easy brute force changes in the code. For example, remove DPS increase when he hits 20 stacks, when he gains stacks. Just remove that completely. Make that harder for Kite strat with uptime. Just like fundamental things where it's very easy to code that reduces the chance of these weird cheat strats that didn't intend. You want to be careful asking. You want to be careful asking them to do all these, complex things because for all you know, they're not even going to fix it, and it's going to be more.
At this point in time,
in a perfect world, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I just think the window to do that is gone since we're coming up on 10 months since.
Well, I think this change itself is not like, yes, okay, the community kind of like, oh, Kite strat, you're cheesing it and stuff and all that stuff. But, like, at this point in time, as you said, it's 10 months. It's almost 12 months in June since the fight got released on live. Who the fuck cares at this point? Like, I'd rather them, like, develop a new operation, please. Like, give me a new operation. Give me a lair boss for all I care. Instead of fixing a fight that's like 10 months old now. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah. It's strange that they're deciding to fix these things now. I do agree that is strange. Okay, well, now I guess what we would do is we would ask some questions from Strat. If you guys have
we do need to wrap it up now because people got things to do, sales to sell.
Exactly.
So
well, Potter, let me ask real quick before you go. This is a great hot tub, first of all. I mean, I got
like
2 of my own. But yeah, damn, that is a nice lamp. I'll tell you, I paid like 50 mil for that lamp. How did you pay for it? Is this a guild stronghold?
Of course it's a guild stronghold. Why do you think we had all our friends joining? Thanks, friends, for like saying hi.
Oh my gosh, you're a lucky guy. You know that?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, those chandeliers for a personal stronghold, they could really ring you up on the cash register. I mean,
exactly.
Geez, those
like,
things are...
why do you think I do
why
sales?
do you think I'm a hot tub streamer? I need cash for my stronghold.
We need them reason. Cash.
Yeah. So I just saw Riku put in chat real quick. I saw him put, would have made sense if they fix it quickly, like the rebounder or reflect on anchors and triple click into Isaacs. I totally agree, Riku. And one of the things, for rebounders and Isaacs, they waited a few months and they changed it without saying anything. Whereas like something like Red Venom, they addressed within the first week, you know? So, and the community consensus was more like, we're going to use it, it's okay. And eventually the groups that did use it at the top obviously have killed the fight without doing the Red Venom. And this cheesy kite strat, it is funny because it wasn't, discovered until later on the tier. Actually, Roscoe was one of the pioneers, sort of like I was pioneer of TC Farm. Roscoe is the pioneer of the kite strat. What a genius that man is. And
what a genius.
In a lot of ways, I've benefited from kite strat when, doing alt kills, making it easier, reducing the amount of progression needed when people are playing classes they're less familiar with. But I would say overall, net positive, they're changing it. It's just silly that it's so late. It's so Bioware for it to be this late, It's sort of like Skiva wasn't fully realized until the end of 5.10. Apex isn't fully realized now until 6.3, allegedly. We'll see if it's even fixed, right?
Yeah.
We'll see if Kite Strat comes back in the new form.
Well, do need to wrap it up now. So thanks everyone for watching the hot tub stream with me and Cliff talking about Nightmare Duxon.
Yeah, thank you guys. Next week?
Next week or 2 weeks? 2 weeks from now. We'll do it every fortnight, guys. We'll see. We'll see how it is. We see how it is because sometimes.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about 6.3 and how it was received.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a review of the Flashpoint. We're gonna talk about Galactic Seasons, and we'll probably talk about the Ducks and NiM changes and how the community is receiving.
But thanks everyone for watching. Really do hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna go sell some gods because it's fun.
Bye.
See you, everyone. Well, I'm not going. I'm still raiding. I'm not actually going anywhere.
Yeah, true.
Wait, I'm just gonna make a clear demarcation in my stream so I can highlight it later. So, I'll be back, people.